Howdy, folks. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. We have Jan. We have Russ. Ack will be joining us any second. Start with some pre-show stuff, and, of course, we'll talk about everything other than hockey in the pre-show. We were just talking about music. Like, everybody's doing the top 10 albums or top 15 this or whatever. I bowed to the thing that on Twitter today where everybody's putting a before and after picture and saying that that's their 2020. And I'd use Nick Nolte, old picture from Rich Man, Poor Man when he was actually in his 30s, where he's playing like a 20-something-year-old, and then like him with the drunk shot with his hair sticking out all over the place.
Getting arrested. You used his mugshot.
Yeah, he used his mugshot. I mean, it was the worst picture you could possibly get for him. But we're talking about music, and Jan mentioned Prince. And I think it's funny because Prince, obviously Purple Rain and all of his great music, and the movie, which he was really good in.
Yeah, the movie was great.
The movie was great. But it seemed that like the sort of cherry on top of the sundae when it came to Prince was that appearance at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame when he came in as the guest guitarist when Tom Petty and Jeff Lynne and Danny Harrison, the son of George Harrison, were doing My Guitar Gently Weeps. And he comes in and does the Eric Clapton guitar solo and burns. I mean, he was phenomenal. It was an incredible, incredible guitar solo. And I'm like, oh my God, it must have been just so unbelievable to be on stage and to see that. But, you know, these are musicians with egos. Apparently, because Danny Harrison was interviewed and somebody asked him about that, and you know, Prince does the thing where he's at the edge of the stage and a security guard catches him and he's leaning over the crowd and then is pushed back, and then he throws the guitar up in the air at the end and the guitar disappears. Danny Harrison was like, Jeff Lynne and Petty were annoyed at the fact that he kept going on with the guitar solo because it went like 6 passes. It went like they kept singing background vocals and kept extending it and thinking that he was going to end, and he just kept going. I mean, as somebody who appreciates music, I loved it, but they thought he was showing off, but I think it was great. So,
well, I mean, again, Prince clearly was from all accounts, right, a very underrated guitar player, which yes, doesn't get noticed in a lot of his other stuff because of the, I use the term in air quotes, theatrics or everything else he did on stage, right? And sure. I mean, for me, that's one of the few shows of people who I really wanted to see that I didn't get a chance to see. And I've been, to a bunch of concerts, but Prince, from my understanding, put on one of the best shows ever. And Purple Rain to me was one of the better albums or best albums that I've ever heard, which is why I'm doing like everybody else is their top 10. For mine, though, not necessarily given rationale and reasons, but for me, it brings me back to when I was just turning 17 when it came out in '84. Yeah. And how big the album was in the autobiographical nature of the movie itself. Mm-hmm. I mean, he was a great artist. I mean, again, if you look at people who talk about
I'll be right back.
Halftime shows, his is one of those that's talked about as probably one of the better halftime shows that exist, depending on your view on halftime shows, which they have not rated as top shelf in most cases.
Now,
well, the one thing, Mike, I'll say is having seen a lot of Prince, but never seen him live either, definitely knew he could play guitar like that. I felt like the reason why he probably did that, Mike, is because of what Jan said. He never really got credit for being really good at guitar. The thing was, I always felt like he always had to put on like a Jimi Hendrix kind of guitar performance to kind of show you he could do it. Now, I don't think he was as good as Eric Clapton or even Eddie Van Halen, but he could play it. And I think that was why he did things like that, because I think he never did get credit.
It's ironic that you mentioned that, because I remember a few years after Purple Rain, and he made a really bad follow-up called Under the Cherry Moon, which was terrible. Yep. But there was talk, and he's a right-handed guitar player, but there was talk of a Jimi Hendrix biopic, and the person that they wanted to play Hendrix was Prince. Now, Prince doesn't look a lot like Hendrix. Hendrix was a bigger guy. Prince is very very slight, and they would have had to reverse the lens to basically make him look like a lefty. And that, see, the thing is that they could have pulled that off because Hendrix, for most of his career, played right-handed guitars and flipped them over and played around like the knobs and things like that. So they could have gotten away with that.
Well, they could do Lenny Kravitz now, I guess.
Well, I mean, they've never done it, and I don't think they're.
No, but they probably will at some point, and I bet you a guy like Kravitz would be.
Well, he can act and he can play the guitar. I just can't play the guitar like.
No, but I mean, he would be like suitable. But I do get what you're saying. I think the other thing is, and look, I didn't listen to Prince a lot in my off time. I definitely heard him on the radio, appreciated the music, but I was more into prog rock then.
Yeah.
But now when you hear the other people from his band, like I probably saw like maybe a year or two ago on Twitter, people were like, wow, look at Sheila E. She's really good at drums. It's like she was always great at drums, except she was in Prince's band. Right. So she probably didn't get credit for being as good as she was, but she was always great. So I think that whole band kind of suffered that.
Now, I don't know if I can forgive you. Go ahead, bro. Go ahead, Jan.
And if you're going to watch anything, clearly you have to watch the Dave Chappelle bit when he has Prince playing basketball, because it is a classic.
I've never seen that.
If you've never seen it,
probably funny.
Oh, it's phenomenal. It is. All right. It is. I mean, Prince was a basketball player. He loved playing basketball. He had a Jim Sposey in his house, and that's where the genesis of the story is. It is a must watch if you have not seen it before.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if I can forgive Prince for writing the immortal Sugar Walls by Sheena Easton, but
well, whatever. So here's the second part of this, and Ek could take part in this. The second part is we're going to have another movie star debate, and we're going to go Adam Sandler versus Will Ferrell. I'll go first. We'll let Ek go last. This way he has a moment to think about it. This is a tough one for me because neither of them are my favorite. Matter of fact, neither of them would be in my top 10, but they've obviously both made a lot of good movies, or a lot of popular movies, I should say, and they had pluses or minuses in their careers. Yeah. You know, Will Ferrell's career could have died after he did The Office because he was horrible in it, but it didn't. Yeah. Adam Sandler, his career could have died after he had a string of like 6 or 7 good movies and then just couldn't make a good movie. I'm going to take Sandler, though, because it's weird. I don't necessarily appreciate most of his comedic talents for whatever, people love him for. But I did like The Wedding Singer, and I did like a few of the things he's produced on Netflix that he's acted in and seriously acted in. Now, I didn't see the most recent one, which everybody was a real movie and everybody said it was bad. But I'm still going to take Sandler because I think he has been able to change his career path a little bit. And he's a long-suffering Jet fan, so I'm going to go with him.
There you go.
Jan, go ahead. Did Jan say?
No.
I'm just hearing this first also, right? So, I mean,
Mike, you go first.
Sandler has done a lot of bad movies after a lot of hits, right? And Will Ferrell, I think he kind of steals almost every scene that he's in, and it's kind of hard to separate the Saturday Night Live stuff from the movie stuff because cheerleader bit in Saturday Night Live and some of the other stuff he did were just classic bits. I'll probably go as an actor Farrell, but Sandler gets the edge because he has produced and produced some stuff, which I think is probably beyond really where Will Ferrell ended up landing. But it's pretty close. But I'd probably give maybe Sandler a slight edge to that, but like Will Ferrell in terms of as an actor, better than Sandler to a certain extent.
I'm in the same boat as Russ because I don't like either one of their comedies. I don't like the son-in-law, the ones with the Mark Wahlberg. There's very few of Happy Gilmore is okay, but
yeah, that's fine.
The Water Boy was just annoying, and the only one that I really thought was okay with Adam Sandler was the one with Drew Barrymore where he was
The Wedding Singer. That's what I brought up.
No, not The Wedding Singer.
But 50 first dates.
Right, 50 first.
Oh yeah, that was
he did a couple. He did more than that with Drew. He did a lot with Drew Barrymore. He did like
but
Blended was another movie he did with Drew Barrymore. A bunch of it.
Okay.
Yeah, but it was cute. It was cute. It was just a nice movie.
I remember that one.
But and Wolf, both of them have tried like dramatic stuff. I can't remember the one movie with Will Ferrell, but it had Dustin Hoffman as his psychiatrist and Emma Thompson, where he was basically like his life was being, she was an author and basically she was writing a book and it was acting out his life. So it was sort of, I can't remember. I'll look it up, but. They both have tried dramatic stuff. Punch Drunk Love, I didn't think was that great. I mean, so it's sort of a tie. I mean, I could take it.
Mike's gonna go tie. That's so weird.
Yeah, Timothy Park in the chat. Spanglish. There's another one that was sort of like,
it wasn't terrible.
Wasn't bad. It wasn't. No, that's
the thing. I think Will Ferrell's terrible movies I actually think are worse than Adam Sandler's terrible movies.
Like,
I agree with that.
Like, I mean, there are some really bad Adam Sandler.
Stranger Than Fiction. That's the name. Stranger Than Fiction.
Okay. I mean, I'm going to
go. Wedding Singer is a classic movie, though. I think it's a great movie.
That's a classic movie. There's some other there's some really. They both did a couple really cool if you have kids classic movies like Bedtime Stories by Adam Sandler is like a really one of my favorite movies of all time, and people would probably call that in like the really bad Adam Sandler age or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
It's really cute, and if you have it for kids, I think that some of Adam Sandler's movies that were just bad were like bad because people didn't have kids. Like I mean, if you had kids, Bedroom Stories is a really good movie. I think some of his. I mean, I'm not a big fan of either of them. I do think it's a really interesting comparable because they are close in my mind. Mm-hmm. Will Ferrell's obviously a bigger hockey fan.
Yeah,
so there's that. He's a big Kings fan. So I met him once, and that was cool. I've never met Adam Sandler. But I will say that Will Ferrell's movie Elf is like is a great movie.
I don't even like it. It's funny. People love it.
Elf is like one of these classic Christmas movies for me.
Elf is okay, and I'm not saying like they're and Anchorman has its humorous points, but it's I don't know, it's really weird humor. I sometimes I don't get it.
I think Adam Sandler is more diverse. Like I think he's
that was my take too.
Yeah, I think so, and I think like a movie that he did with Jennifer Aniston in 2011, Just Go With It, is actually a pretty fun movie. Like it's a pretty good movie.
I didn't see that one, but the one that he did on Netflix with her was pretty good.
Yeah. Just Go With It is really a good movie.
Yeah. Somebody just said anger. See, this is anger management. It's like Adam Sandler and Jack Nicholson.
That was bad.
It was really.
But you knew that was going to be bad from the setup. Like,
you could clearly see that Jack was doing that so he could buy some more ganja.
Yeah. I mean, again, Ferrell's. The Office was so bad with him.
Yeah, that was really bad.
You knew 10 minutes in, this was never going to work out. Like, you knew that as a viewer.
Blades of Glory?
Blades of Glory.
Blades of Glory, I like
the one with.
No,
and some people hated that movie, right? But
yeah,
that's typical Will Ferrell.
It's okay. That was terrible. I mean, I think that I forget the one movie that Adam Sandler's in where he plays a star. Like a movie star that's done a bunch of bad movies. Adam Sandler's. It's one movie.
Oh, no, it's Seth Rogen.
Yeah, he plays a movie, so he's like playing, and in that it was pretty cool that he could make fun of himself. I thought, that was definitely something he did, because some of the movies were really close, like in titles, and really close to like movies he actually did.
Funny people.
That was actually pretty good.
Yeah, but when that's the thing. When he tries to do like, I haven't seen Uncut Gems, but I heard he was good in that. There was a movie that he did about, I think his wife dies in the towers in 9/11, and he's playing this guy who's just traumatized by it. It was really just.
I mean, neither of these guys is really.
Well, it looks like Adam Sandler is going to win this one because Mike had no opinion.
Yeah, so Adam Sandler is better. He's easy to rip on Adam Sandler too. Plus, he did a movie called Pixels, which is a movie about arcade games. So that's like another thing that is not a good movie, but it's for a person.
Yeah,
like
I never bothered.
It's a cartoon.
For a person like me, it's a lot of fun. Like to have Kubert in a movie. But anyway, let's move on and go in here.
I have a little bit of breaking news to start the show, so let's do that.
All right, we'll see if we can fix it. Here we go. Ready? Hello, Hockey World. It is Wednesday, May 20th, 2020.
2020. I'm Michael Lagello.
I'm Jan Levine.
Russ Cohen from Sportsology.
And I'm Eklund, and you're watching HockeyBuzzcast on HockeyBuzz.com. This is the podcast that comes every Monday through Friday at this time, or right somewhere in the afternoons, to fill you in on the comings and goings in the hockey world. And yes, I did survive my bout with the bear yesterday. I'm okay. I'm fine.
Chomp, chomp, chomp.
I had fun. It was a really fun time to be in the woods up there, and it's something I recommend to people right now. If you can find a national or a state like park somewhere or that's open that you can get out. It does the body good to just, even if you don't like hiking. I'm not a huge hiking guy, but I really do think that it was fun. You got to get out there if you can get out. Just get the fresh air and realize. And another funny thing is, animals are getting. I saw more bears than I've ever seen, and just like.
Well, yeah, because they know that they could sense that the people have not been around,
right?
So they've reclaimed a lot of that area.
I can't imagine what Yellowstone Park is like because it's been closed for a long time. Yellowstone Park. I bet you the bears there are like taking over the.
I guarantee they have.
They greet you at the gate coming in, I think.
Yeah, they must. I mean, they really. This is definitely.
They give you a welcome package.
So, Mike, what is your breaking news?
Okay. According to our own Bill Meltzer, who was on a conference call with Flyers forward and member of the Return to Play Committee, James Van Riemsdyk.
Right.
Van Riemsdyk reported that there has still not been any determination, no settlement in terms of a playoff format or a date certain to return to play. Now that goes hand in hand with what Pierre LeBrun reported yesterday of the 7 to 10 day window. So, and what I heard LeBrun report yesterday, and this really is, I think it's frustrating to hockey fans, and it's concerning for people like us who talk about hockey all the time. There are teams right now that are still bickering over the expanded playoff format, and teams like, say, Montreal, Chicago, Anaheim getting into the playoffs and having a chance to beat a team that is a legitimate playoff team, meaning top 8 in each conference, which is probably the reason why there's a lot of talk of finishing the regular season, because at least if they do that, then you can justify, okay, we made the playoffs because we completed the regular season. But I don't think anybody out there really wants to see regular season games. And
I haven't found one person that does yet.
No, even the teams that are complaining about that, and I've talked to, admit that it's like a necessary evil. It's like, I think the only thing what is holding this up now is the general uncertainty of the world, and that's what's still going on. Like, there is still a feeling like, and Bettman.
Well, I don't know.
Say like we talked about, yesterday, and I more talked to people today that they really are serious about not wanting to look bad here in terms of not wanting to be like we're taking tests from people when there aren't enough tests.
No, forgetting that the what's going on in the world, I get, and the fact that we don't know what's going to happen. That doesn't mean you can't have a decisive answer as to what's going to happen in your league going forward if there is a league. You could have that. Like that has nothing to do with the world. Playoffs has nothing to do with the world. All you have to do is decide on a format, and they can't do it.
I think it's less about appearances. I mean, like I said, there's been a shaming campaign going on regarding professional sports and how they're taking preference over people who need tests, and each one has had some sort of, I think, face-saving proposal where they're going to offer tests to people to make up for the fact that they need tests and things of that nature. A whole PR campaign. What I think the problem is right now is they can't reach compromise, and they can't make a decision on things that are I think pretty simple. Determine how many teams are going to make the playoffs, determine how you're going to do it, and get it done.
Yeah, I mean, the NHL.
So here's my question, though: is how many games constitutes completing the regular season? Right? We've talked a couple times of if you get to a level set of 76 games. I'm just using that as a random number. Is that sufficient? So that way, everybody's at the same number of games. Whoever could make the playoffs will make the playoffs, and that's your cutoff point. But at least everybody has played a similar number of games, rather than now you have some with 68, some with 69, 70, 71.
Well, based on what
here's the thing about that, though. I mean, I think that yesterday a lot of people misinterpreted. We were reading Bettman's quote. If you read it exactly, what he says, we still believe that we really want, our goal is to finish the season and hand out the Stanley Cup. That doesn't mean finish the regular season. Okay,
right.
That's like, and a lot of people took that as like, oh, we want to go to finish the regular season, and it's no, he never says that. He just finish the season and hand out the Stanley Cup. That's very different.
Right. All right. So here's what I'll use as an example, Ek. So the KHL didn't have playoffs.
Yeah.
They said, all right, we're not going to hand out the cup, but we do want to acknowledge who won the regular season. So they did do that, and they did. And the idea is, I don't even know if everybody played the same amount of games. You didn't. Like the minute the lights went off, the minute that the power stopped,
that was it.
It is what it is. And I think teams have to just understand that and move on from that. I get even the rolling back I was fine with. But if you want to get away from that, however it ended, it ended. And I think everybody has to come to grips with that and move forward with this and at least decide on a playoff format. I don't need dates, Ek. I don't need to know the startup date of anything. But I think it would be good to know what the plan is going forward if they're able to do it. And I think Gary Bettman did the right thing the other day by saying, hey, we're not going to take tests away from anybody. He was the only commissioner that said that.
And he was really, and I'm not surprised because like people rip Bettman to shreds, and I think I found him to be like a really actually legitimately caring person.
Yeah.
And, I mean, when I've known people who've been sick, if he's been there for, it's like he is not, and he never would talk about it, but I'm not surprised. Like it feels legitimate coming from him that he.
But let's go back to what Jan was talking about. Based on what you had reported a couple weeks ago, Eck, in terms of these regional contracts with regional TV deals.
Yep.
An abrogation of those TV deals is if you don't play 82 games. So if they play anything less, they play 76 or 78, that means that they're losing out on. Now, I don't know if it means losing out on 4 games or 6 games worth of revenue, or they lose a whole chunk of money. But if they hold them fast to those contracts, they have to play 82 games. So, I mean,
they do. Although I think the NHL is, and the teams that I've talked to people about that, because like I said, the rule of what I was hearing, and I confirmed this with a couple teams, is that if they don't play full seasons, they and they don't get all those games in, what ends up happening is the next year that the team can that network can televise the team for free. Which is like which are crazy. That's a Fox Sports thing specifically, actually.
Yeah.
So the teams on Fox Sports, that's like a standard Fox Sports contract. I think what you could see in this whole thing is very clearly like a renegotiation of that, and also just like, and also the government stepping in and saying, hey, this is like, these are extreme circumstances. If you had to cancel a game because of a hurricane or whatever, would you hold that against them? You know what I mean? And I think you'll see that. I think that for sure. I'm going to get my dog 1 second. We're there.
Okay.
All right. I think they just need to come up with the answer and say what the answer is, and say, we'll get back to you with the dates. You don't have to give us dates, but I just think the fact that JVR had to do a call and still say that, we don't really have anything. I guarantee you everybody on that call was not thrilled, and writers and otherwise. And
because he didn't give any answers. He really didn't. Right. And now the thing is, okay.
But he was also told, I think what he said there was very much the talking points, because I've talked to other people too, and they said the same thing. Bettman left when they've ended these things. Bettman knows people are going to talk to people, right? So he sees the whole concept is we need to have they have a talking point.
Sure, but the longer this goes, Zach, more guys will break ranks. You watch.
Yeah, but they won't be allowed back into that. I mean, like the way this works is
no, I get it, but there's still going to be guys outside of that meeting that hear from their buddies in the meeting that are going to break ranks. If this goes another 2 weeks, I can't imagine everybody, because again, I understand, like, from the player's perspective, and like I said, not every player is going to be thrilled about having to go and play under these circumstances. And the ones that are being quiet right now are kind of waiting for all this to get announced. Yeah. If nothing gets announced, you're going to find more Radko Gudises out there. You will.
So you guys are familiar with what happened in the German Soccer League, right? So that's a big deal, and I think that's something where for those who don't know, the German Soccer League in Germany has handled this better than anyone. In general, give them that. They have done a good job with this pandemic. They got their league back. They quarantined their players in hotels. It's a dry run, flat out, for what we're going to see the NHL do. 2 of the players tested positive for coronavirus already, and that whole team is being quarantined for 14 days now. So,
well, the coach is one of them, and I only know this because I watched Stephen Colbert's show, not Colbert, John Oliver's show,
right?
And the coach went out for toothpaste, and it's like, see, now this is the kind of, but Mike, this is what we were talking about.
It's a different team than the team that was.
Well, he was quarantined though. Okay,
it's quarantined because he left.
Yeah, he missed the first game. He had to sit. I think he had to sit in the stands. He couldn't coach the first game because he
went out,
punished, whatever term you want to use.
Because he left.
But again, so think about it yesterday, right? So Paulo Duca was on FAN the other day, right? And I'm not a huge Paulo Duca fan, but one of the things he brought up, which is interesting, is in baseball, what happens if you have a substantive number of a team that ends up getting the virus, right? Do you suspend the team? Do you suspend play? How do you resume it if you have a large chunk of an individual team that impacts? In baseball, it's different. You're doing regular seasons. What do you do in the playoffs?
Games. That's the way it is.
That's what you have a big taxi squad for. But it's like COVID-19 or gingivitis. Give me a friggin' break. That's what I mean. That's like
they'll have to forfeit games if that. Let's say they have a 40-man roster, and all of a sudden they can't even field a full major league team, they would have to forfeit games. That's
I'll give you the black helicopter conspiracy theory that'll come out if that happens in any North American team. They'll say that other teams are sending people that are infected with COVID-19 to the other team to basically get them infected. You watch. You will hear something like that if people get tested positive, and it's numerous people.
Now, Eck, I wanted to bring up because, again, I think this does affect hockey because it's in the same city. So I saw an advertisement yesterday. There's going to be a Comic-Con in Tampa Bay in July, and that is going to have fans. And that is, again, part of what we're talking about with some states that are going to allow these things. And so now you do kind of wonder how leagues are going to feel about that, because they're probably thinking, well, if they could have fans there and get that revenue, maybe we can by July too.
Right.
In two of these cities.
I mean, it's going to have more to do with the state they're in, than anything else, right? That's the reality.
Now, one interesting thing that John Shannon posted this morning.
Right,
he said the NHL and teams have done social distancing models for people in seats in most arenas. Based on people being 6 feet apart in every direction, it would only be able to fit 2,000 to 2,500 fans at a game. A bit of a non-starter because it's not really worth it because they're not.
Right, because you're going to probably break even with the people working the game.
Right.
If you're lucky.
And more than likely, if you put first of all, that little
people have to walk into the stands. It just doesn't make any sense.
Right, and then most places right now that are partially open, like restaurants that are like doing takeout stuff, no bathroom availability, so you can't. You're gonna have 2,000 to 2,500 people that can't have access to bathrooms. No concessions. So what are they gonna do?
Sounds like Nassau Coliseum.
Nice.
I'm kidding, people. I'm kidding.
Very nice.
He just pissed off the entire island on that one.
Very nice. I like that.
The other question that was interesting that was asked is what happens next year, right? When let's say play resumes, and let's say your max capacity, let's just use a number 8,000, right? But you have 10,000 season tickets sold.
Yeah.
How do you start handling that and people in sections? All these things obviously are fitted down the road to be ironed out, but there are things that have to be considered.
It's not possible. I mean, it really just isn't until that's all. Until we have a vaccine, people in the stands are not going to be possible. That's my I stand by that. That's just like the way I think it's going to go.
That has to be accepted. I mean, to get the sport back on the ice for the rest of this season, there will be no fans in the stands. If people can't grasp that, then
this season, and I think even like the beginning of next season, possibly until the virus is until there's a vaccine out there. I think you're going to have to deal with that.
That's where I think it ends, Zach, because the whole reason why they'd be starting in December is so they could have.
That's why I maintain that they will start in January or February and do a shorten the season, because you'd rather have a shortened season with actual fans in there for every game.
So you do another 48 game season then is what you're projecting, or 54 or whatever.
Maybe.
Right, clearly depends on when you end.
Yeah, I mean, it does, and I think that there's no question. This continually affects things, and there's no point in not finishing the season because you can't start the other season in October anyway. So the point that when you talk about why are they pushing this? They know they can't get people in the stands until December, so why not try to finish the season? That's their thinking. If you knew in October that they were going to be able to have people back in the stands, they would just, I think, cancel this season.
I mean, you know what the league could do? They could order 17,000 robots, program it with your personality and everything else, and then your robot can show up at the game, sit in the stands, and act like you would act. I think that's fair.
I told you my virtual reality idea.
Can we erase that from the recording?
It's doable. It's doable.
Unfortunately, my robot can't enjoy eating a Hebrew National hot dog. So
here's another thing. I have a little bit of breaking news. I was texted this in the last hour. I wasn't able to put this into my blog yet. I will this afternoon. So this whole concept of there's 8 or 9 cities or whatever the reason for that is not that they don't know where the first 2 cities are going to be. Like the first 2 cities I've heard are set. I don't know what they are exactly, but I've heard they're set.
The report I saw yesterday was Vegas and Columbus.
That makes sense.
Okay. I heard Minnesota's still in the running. I don't know.
Another report said Vegas and Edmonton.
But Minnesota did just have a rise, so maybe they're out now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean Columbus is definitely on the list. But the rest of the cities that they're still looking for are contingency cities in case something goes wrong in one of those cities, or the situation where maybe you move them to another place for the second round or third round or something like that if things start to get bad. So that they want to be able to move on, and they want to be able to move on an instant. Like they want to be able
that's good to have that built in.
It's in case it spikes and there's a hot spot. Yeah.
So these are cities. It's not like there's a bidding war going on right now. I was told for the first places that they're going to go, that they kind of have a concept of that.
But we've heard Minnesota, we've heard Edmonton, Vancouver, Toronto, Vegas, Columbus, Raleigh. So
I get the impression it's going to be in the U.S.
North Carolina's had a big spike in the last couple of days. I doubt they're going to be on there.
Yeah. I get the impression it's going to be in the U.S. Even though
I think it's all going to be U.S. I told you that initially because it's just you're going to have fewer problems.
Okay. Sorry.
No, it's okay. Once you get the guys here and get them quarantined, you're going to have fewer problems than if you're going to hop back and forth because you know that. And again, you don't want this to happen, but if players were to cross from, let's say, Canada to the U.S., and then all of a sudden there's a spike, the Canadian players, they're going to get blamed for this.
And they're not
players from those teams.
And they might not be able to come back to their country for
right. And so you'd rather just get them here and then just keep them here instead of going back and forth because you don't want it to be political where all of a sudden, your government, whether it's in Canada or the U.S., can start saying, well, you see, we allowed these people in and now we got a problem again.
That's already going on.
Right or wrong, the feeling is that the American cities are going to be more lenient than the Canadian cities would be about this stuff. And they want.
I think that's actually true based on what I've heard recently, too.
Yeah, and they want that, too. And they want, to have, I don't think that doesn't mean the NHL will be smart, but I think they want to be able to make some of their own decisions, and they feel like they don't want decisions being forced upon them, and they're afraid that could happen in Canadian cities. Right or wrong, I mean, you can argue that every which way to Sunday, but I'm just saying that's their thinking on it. If you're a business, you want to have as much flexibility as you can. And I think I believe the NHL would do the right thing if even if the city said it was still okay to play, if they realized it wasn't.
Well, you know that everything is sort of ass backwards in professional sports right now. And to use an example, normally I'm not a big fan of horse racing, but the order of the Triple Crown this year is going to be reversed, where the Belmont is the first race, and then the Kentucky Derby, and then the Preakness. So they're flipping things around.
Yeah.
They're changing the length of the Belmont. Yep. So I mean, everything is going to be. This is going to be an abnormal year. There's no way to.
It's going to be an abnormal 2 year,
which already is, right? I mean, are we not? Are we already not?
Which is why I think also for me, the key is setting a date and setting locations are important, right? Because we talked a couple times because of all the players that are overseas and the need to bring them back in the quarantine period that's likely going to take place. You need to build that in and bake that into the time. The longer this continues to drag out, that impacts in terms of the start date and also if you had a date and locations, once it gets ironed out, then you can bring the people over, quarantine them, which doesn't have an impact on camps and everything else potentially opening.
Well, they would bring them anyhow, Jan, but I don't think you have to have a date like June 1st. This has to happen June 1st. You could give a 2-week period. You don't have to have one particular date because I think the world would realize that's too hard to do right now. I do think that.
Well, start date even. Like we talked about, when games might resume. That's when you kind of need to figure that also to back your back date to figure out bringing everybody over and so.
Right. I think so.
Yeah, but I mean that may not be necessary if after the 30-day extension that happened yesterday. Because we're talking about the playoffs or whatever starting probably mid-July. If it happens in mid-July, then when June 21st happens and this non-essential closing ends for the U.S.-Canadian border, then they can simply go back and forth with no 2-week quarantine. And if that's the case, then these teams in Canada can train at their own training camps in Toronto, in Vancouver, in Edmonton, and then simply go over to that neutral city That the hub when we're ready to go. So I think that's probably the reason why yesterday they said that the extension of 30 days wasn't going to affect anything, because they're not really starting to plan getting things going until probably after that deadline passes.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing now like the 15th of July, it's around there. But and that they feel like if they do 15th of July, they end around the 15th of September. The whole thing is basically a 2-month process. And I think, and that brings up my blog today, which is this, that I've been told that in the preliminary games, so like the round robin games, and actually in the
these round robin, are they playoff or regular season?
Playoff. Like I'm just
they're counting as playoff. Okay,
they're going to count as playoffs for sure, because every team has to play the same amount of games in the regular season for the statistics. So, so these are extra games, right? So, but the round robin games will be played. There will be games played on back-to-back nights by teams, and you'll actually have that also in the playoffs. That don't expect every other night for the teams in the playoffs in a best-of-7 series. Like you will, because of the lack of travel. They will definitely get these games done. They're going to play as many games as they can in the shortest period of time they can to try to get this thing done.
So, you know what's going to happen with that?
Yeah.
There are teams now that are going to seriously have to think about using their backup.
Yep. In the playoffs.
In the playoffs.
That's why my blog today was what teams have backup goalies that can handle this, and obviously the Rangers are the best.
Yeah.
But because you don't just need 2 here, you need 3. I really think you're going to need 3, because if somebody gets hurt, then what?
As an example,
Mike just leave. Mike just left. He didn't like that concept at
all.
No,
he didn't like it. As an example, though, if I'm the Rangers, I'm using Lundqvist before I'm using Georgiev, because he has all the playoff experience.
Yeah.
You've got to prove to me that Lundqvist can't play before I'm not going to use him.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that, this concept of, and that is if the Rangers get in, that's still, like I said, that's up for debate still. And not only the Rangers, but the Blackhawks, could be getting in. And the more I hear about it, the more I think the Rangers and the Blackhawks actually I would say it's about 50. So I would say it's about 50-50, where I thought the Rangers were about 25% to get in before. I think it's closer to 50-50 now, and that for the Rangers and the Blackhawks, and no to Buffalo and Anaheim. But I think that the back goalies. I mean, and one of the teams I want to talk about, of course, is Toronto in this situation, because they don't play their goalie on back-to-back nights regular season. Now you could sit back and say, okay, well, everyone has had months and months and months of rest here. So
yeah, but that's not good for a goalie.
Right.
All that is good for is to stay healthy, but that doesn't help a goalie stay in rhythm and keep all their moving parts right. Like, I don't think it's a positive for goalies to sit dormant, other than if they were nursing an injury. Otherwise, you kind of have to keep goalies moving. I don't think that's a positive.
I mean, I think when you look,
I would think more of an issue would be beyond backup goalies is fatigue. Potential of groin strains and other type of injuries, right?
Yeah.
Because of the shortened camp and things opening. To me, the rationale for playing back makes a ton of sense, because you're compressing it, but there's also that downstream risk that you have to manage, which is why we've talked about the expanded rosters are going to be a big key associated with the playoffs.
But the intensity of this is going to be something. I mean, and this helps, I think of Vegas. I think of Vegas, who went out and got Robin Leonard.
Oh, Vegas will have one of the best tandems.
They've got those 2 guys they can go with. I think of Philly with Carter Hart and Brian Elliott, who were very good this year. Both of them were solid.
Elliott's been great this year.
He's had both can get hurt, obviously, and it could end up with Alex Lyon.
The weird thing is Elliott didn't get hurt this year, so would it be shocking to anybody if he gets hurt the minute the playoffs start?
Of course not.
I'm sorry. Yeah, right. Will he get hurt the second the playoffs start? Excuse me.
Yeah, no, of course not. By the way, my internet just completely crapped out at the most inopportune time. So
well, now it's just me and you, Mike. It's
Janet business and X got dog patrol. So there you go.
That's it. But basically, it's funny, Mike, because again, I don't think it's a positive for goalies to have their season paused and then come back and try and be sharp. We all know that, yes, they might be healthier, but like Jan was saying, for groin pulls and other things, it's a nightmare for a goalie to get things started again. I don't think that's a big positive for them.
Yeah, and maybe you're right. Maybe the teams that do have like 1B backups, like Khudobin in Dallas, and Ben Bishop is somebody who's had injury issues throughout his career, or Yaroslav Halak in Boston. That those teams are going to have an advantage in the playoffs over teams that are heavily dependent on one goaltender. I mean, you could see in Toronto now that they have confidence in a backup like Jack Campbell, that Jack Campbell gets a not a playoff start, because I'm sure if it's a best of 5 or best of 7.
Well, it'll be best of 7. I mean, or best of 3. I mean, it'll be best of 3 in the first thing, or best of 7 the rest.
But if they're doing a 5-game round robin, I could see Jack Campbell starting one of those games, because
I think they have to, and I think in the round robin, backups are going to have to play a game. And I think that the interesting thing about that, of course, is you're going to want to win your early games if that's the case. If you're Toronto, because like the idea is, it really behooves the Maple Leafs to get into that first bye, like to get through that bye.
Sure.
As it behooves any team, basically. I mean, otherwise you're looking at, let's say that Tampa is automatically going to get that first seed. Maybe let's just assume that, which I think is probably pretty safe. I mean, Boston's the best team in the league, so I shouldn't say that at all. You have two of the maybe the 2 best teams in the NHL in Boston and Tampa. So if you can get in there, it's great. Or else you are playing in your first 7-game series, you're playing either Boston or Tampa, right? So there's no getting around that. So that's how you're looking at this thing. So you want to get as far as you can. I think the backup goalie situation is going to be enormously important. We always say it is, but I think it's going to be important in not just getting through the round robin, through the first round, but through the playoffs itself. You're going to have to get games out of your backup, and Campbell's not exactly an experienced backup.
Well, he's been in the league for 3 years. I think he's a quality backup.
I think he's experienced enough that you can let him start a game and at least see how he's going to do. And I think he would do fine. I do.
I mean, he played in big games, obviously. In juniors, he was a big game goalie.
Yeah.
But, I think that, I don't expect – I mean, there are teams – like, look at the teams that really have – I mean, the Penguins have 2 good backups – 2 good goalies, you would guess to say, basically, if Murray's playing well. The Capitals have 2 good goalies. So they're in pretty good shape. I'm trying to think of the teams that really aren't in shape, like Montreal, for example, might not.
I mean, Florida would be interesting because
Florida,
you're going to have to go with Bob. But if all of a sudden Bob doesn't look good again, I mean, they used Chris Driedger in the season, but I think they used him because they had no choice. That would be a tough spot to be in the playoffs if all of a sudden you got to use Chris Driedger. No offense to him.
Chicago has Malcolm Subban as their backup instead of Robin Lehner after the trade.
Right. That changes things a lot for them. I think when you look at the teams, and I was going through it quickly, and my article was really short this morning because I was trying to get it done before this, and I was talking to people all morning about the other stuff. So but I was going through it quickly, and it felt like the Eastern Conference was more set up with backup goalies in general than the Western Conference was. Like when I went through it, it was just like, I mean, there are some teams we talked about, like Dallas is a good example. I mean, Nashville is okay, right? Go through that. St. Louis is like a questionable one. That's like, okay, they obviously have a really good, but how good is their backup there? He's okay. I mean, he's had his issues in the playoffs though. So, Chicago obviously has problems. If Chicago gets there, for sure, they would have problems. I mean, the Colorado has 2 good goalies. I would say they're pretty good.
Well, I mean, Francouz proved himself this year enough that I think if they had to use him, they would use him.
I think he's the better goalie. I think they will use him.
Could be.
Let's touch on this. Dallas Stars owner Tom Gagliardi was on a Dallas radio station yesterday and made some interesting comments. I'll just read it off quickly here. It says it's a bit of a horrifying thought to think about the NHL without fans. He said that he doesn't think that we need a vaccine to see fans back in stadiums. Also admitted he doesn't know the solution to get fans back in. Quote, "We are just hoping to play. It's important for our league to play, whatever that looks like. Crown a Stanley Cup champion whenever that is. If it's in a neutral site with no fans, if that's where we end up landing, then obviously probably no financial reason to play, but we're motivated to play for the right reasons. It's important to our league, and I think we're in the same boat as the NBA. Players want to play, that league wants to play, and we're all trying to do the same things and finish our seasons, and we owe that to the fans and our players." Now, the one thing is disingenuous here. They're not doing it for the fans. They're doing it because they have contracts. They need to make money.
It is not. You can't say you're doing 100% for the fans, but I would say that there are some owners out there that do feel.
No, I think they care about them. I mean,
and sure, there's a financial part to that as well, but because caring about them does come into play. You want to.
I spent 3 or 4 days in Dallas for the Winter Classic, and I felt like their ownership did care about the fans. They did some things that other teams actually hadn't done. But what I did find, Mike, interesting was he said even if there's no real financial benefit, he didn't have to throw that in there. But that just tells you the frustration of the owners that they know the minute this starts up, they're losing money. No matter what, they're losing money. Like that.
But see, his point of view his point of view in terms of these comments is, I'm 100% selfless. No, you're not. You may be doing it for the fans. You may be doing it because the players want to play, but you're also doing it for the financial stability of the league. There's nothing wrong with saying we need to be financially viable and we need to play these games. Yeah. It's not like you're evil, mustache twirling capitalists.
Yeah, but the financial viability of the league does depend on them playing, even if they're not playing in front of fans.
Right. That's the point I'm making. I'm saying.
Yeah, so I agree. Yeah, I mean,
the perception here is that they're evil if they say, well, we're doing it because the league needs to make money. Of course the league needs to make money. And otherwise, there are going to be teams that could go under if they lose $1.5 billion this year and more money next year. That's a reality.
That's very true. I agree.
No, but you know what the difference is, too? I mean, he is not the same as Jerry Jones in that city, right? If Jerry Jones says what he said, everybody goes, oh, look, it's Jerry. Who cares? Jerry brings in billions. We're not going to worry. But, we're talking about it because it's the Dallas Stars. If this was just another owner in another city, they're all going to have that feeling. I don't think any owner is going to act any differently than he did, honestly. I don't think there's a great answer. And clearly – they need to do it, though, like X said, because otherwise it's one of those things where starting up again with TV and everything else, going into their TV contract year, right? Isn't after next year when they're looking for the deal?
Yes.
They need to, show some good ratings and they need to have a product to show them. And that is all part and parcel of this. I get it. We know fans want sports. That's obvious. But it's a big issue. I mean, again, like X said, they went to do this in Germany and it didn't work out. And they were the place that had it. So
yeah,
they're going to have problems. There's no way around it. Like we know there's going to be positive tests. As long as the players are willing to do it, this will start up. Yeah. But they and like I said, I just think they need to get on with it, for lack of a better term. I just do.
Yeah. I think you're right. I mean, they do. They're going to have to step out of their comfort zone like everybody else is. The NHL's comfort zone is not to do anything until they know it's 100% good and that they're going to be able to do it. And the problem is in this situation, you can't be that way.
Yeah, there's nothing 100% good in this.
100% good.
And you know what? Even PR-wise right now, you really can't control it because everything changes hour to hour. So
I mean, no one's going to hold it against. There's this whole
nobody's going to hold it against them. That's true.
The whole concept that, and I think even to our government that, we're holding this against the government. It's like, I mean, now we might be, but in the beginning, if the government here had just come out and said, this caught us all by surprise, no one would have expected this, then we would not be holding this against the government and we'd be working with them. But instead, they've continually said what a great job they're doing. So then it becomes kind of crazy. I think if the NHL's got to take a cue off that and say, okay, I mean, this is what we think, but understand we're going to do what's best for everybody else. So this might not work out and you can easily qualify it. Everybody understands that. But at the same time, we're saying we're trying to get back on there because we know you guys need release. You guys need a chance to get out there and just even just in your own house, watch a game. If not getting out there, so, and for the Dallas fan to say, this is not going to wait till a vaccine. And then in the same breath say, that he doesn't know how people will feel comfortable again. It's because of they have a vaccine. I mean, it's like that's a really bizarre thing to say, that like that.
But the thing is, Zach, a lot of people are saying that, and again, we don't know if there's ever going to be a vaccine, and B, if it's a vaccine, if it's like the flu vaccine, which 30% of the people who take the vaccine still get the flu.
Right, so and that's right. I mean, that is a reality of life there.
Yeah. The vaccine. I mean, the vaccine is going to be an issue still.
It's all going to be experimental. It's all experimental. We get that, and the world gets that. And I think That's why you have to just look at it and say, all right, we have to just take our best stab at it and just go with that.
Yeah.
And that's what they'll do. And we hope that it works out. Like, that's it. Like, honestly, we're just hoping it works out. I thought Oliver's segment on his show pointed out just how precarious it is for sports now, because while he is a hardened news guy and while he is, a Brit, he loves American sports.
He's a huge soccer guy from England.
Yeah, and you could tell he loves sports, and you could tell he wants to sort of be part of the solution too, with digging up facts and everything. And so, nobody has a leg up right now. There's not one sport in this, even NASCAR, they don't really have a leg up either, because again, I don't know what kind of ratings they pulled in. We don't know.
Yeah. I mean, we're going to have to wait a month to see how all these places opening up affects everything.
Right.
And so that's another issue. So that's the hardest to bring and say, okay, we're going to report in June, for the players. Yeah, that they might be reporting when things are just exploding. It's a real tough spot to be in. And I think that the bottom line is we just have to be patient, and hopefully we can get there. I mean, but
I do have other news, Zach.
Wonderful.
And
be fantastic to talk about.
Noel Hoffenmeyer did win the OHL's Best Defenseman Award.
I was going to read about that. So
and again, that's great for this kid. I interviewed him pre-draft. He never got invited to the combine. He gets drafted by Arizona. Arizona doesn't retain him. The Marlies sign him. They sign him to a Marlies contract.
Right.
And now he's in the Leafs organization, and he really has a chance. I really believe that this kid has a chance to eventually make it, and nice that he wins an award like this and sort of shows, maybe even the Leaf fans that, hey, you know what? This is a pretty good free agent signing. You don't generally get a guy. I get he's an overager. I don't care. But you generally don't get a guy like this on a free agent deal like that.
Well, I mean, there has been over the last couple of years a path to advance through in the Leaf organization. Justin Hall was somebody that the Leafs found. It was on the ECHL roster, I think, of the Chicago Blackhawks, because he was a second-round pick. Was 4 years at University of Minnesota. For some reason, they didn't like him. He played some time in the AHL, got sent to the ECHL. They picked him off their roster. They signed him to an AHL deal, then an NHL deal, and then he makes the Leafs. And after a year of sitting around because of Mike Babcock, now he's a top 4 defenseman for them. So, they with him and another defenseman named Christian Rubens, who they signed on an AHL deal, and he's now on an NHL contract. There is a pathway for a guy like Hoffenmeyer, who, as Russ said, had a big year in the OHL with Ottawa. Signs a 2-year deal with the Marlies. It's very possible that after a year, if they like what they've seen, he gets an NHL deal. And there's another guy that you basically, for lack of a better term, picked off the scrap heap and turned it into something, and he could be a good piece going forward for the Leafs. So
yeah, he has offensive ability, so I like that. Also, I did want to mention NASCAR got 2.9 million viewers, so they looked at that as a real success.
Yeah,
so that looks good for the NHL. If they were to get it together and come back, there's probably still enough of an audience that has to stay at home that you might get better than good ratings, and maybe that gets them more ad money. On the Devils side, Ty Smith won the WHL Defenseman of the Year, and this kid's terrific.
Second time he won it.
Yeah, second time he won it.
You need defensemen in the worst
way. And they need it in the worst way. And I think last year they were flirting with rushing him, and they didn't. And now they could look at him again and say, boy, it's so close. They might be the kind of team now that does look to put him in there. And if they do, hey, he's really a solid two-way guy who has offensive game. And I think when it's right for him, and it may not be the first year, like a 35, 40-point guy in the NHL.
I was waiting.
The deadline. They tried to see if the Devils were going to move him, and obviously they weren't. But
I was waiting to bring this up, and since you're talking about a Devils defenseman, I think it's a bright time to do so. 3 days ago, PK Subban, there was an interview where he boasted, "I'm still one of the top defensemen in the league." I'm all for somebody having supreme self-confidence. That's great, but there's also something called delusions of grandeur. And based on the way he played last year, he is nowhere close to even being the best defenseman in the Metro Division, let alone the NHL. Now, can he bounce back and be a very good defenseman? For the New Jersey Devils, I hope so, because he's making $9 million a year. But there's a reason why there were rumors about him being traded, because he played terribly last year. And maybe he can change things around. I'm glad he has the confidence in himself. But coming off the year he did, he is nowhere close to being a top defenseman in this league.
And again, I don't understand why people are going crazy on this grading curve with him. It's not like his whole game has fallen off. There were coaching changes. He didn't train right this offseason. I think he'd be the first to admit it. We've talked about it. And I think it is right for him to have that mentality, even if the world disagrees with him, because that's the only way he's going to get back to being that guy, is by having that mentality. If you all of a sudden, if you hear him saying, I don't know where I'm at with my game, you worry about that more, to be honest.
Well, I mean, let's just say I think he could have said it a better way, because I think he's basically he's exuding cluelessness when he says, I'm still one of the top defensemen in the league.
Oh, he's not. What he's doing, I disagree. He is not. It's not cluelessness. What he's doing is exhibiting he's basically betting on himself. This is him just saying, hey, I think I am still this guy. Whatever you think doesn't really matter to me. This is what I think.
Right. Well, okay. Well, I mean, you know what? If he comes back and he plays like he did in Nashville, then he can say, okay, I'm back. I'm back to the way I thought I was. Stick at everybody who was critical.
I mean, look, he's never going to be the 60-point guy again. We get that.
Right.
Yeah. But part of his game is swagger. So it's like, to me, this is just typical for him. This is like swagger stuff, and it's he's lost his swagger. He definitely has lost his game.
And a lot of people don't like that. And it's like a lot of people don't like swagger. Well, I mean, when
the NHL is wimpy that way, I agree. The NHL has like a anti-swagger thing. It makes me.
They are, but I don't agree with that either. Like you say, look. When you break down his numbers, his points stink, right? 18 points, but the whole team stunk. His shooting percentage is not that far off from last year at 4.6. He certainly could go back. If it goes back to 7, he gets double-digit goals again. He's averaging 22 minutes a game, so even though he had a bad year, it didn't keep him off the ice. He was only down 2 minutes a game from his Nashville time, and he still had a lot of blocks and a lot of hits. So, again, because he didn't put up points, everybody wants to say, oh, PK Subban's finished. Look at him. It's a horrible move. It's like, there you go look at some of your favorite hockey players in their careers. They had off seasons too. They did.
Totally.
Another note, I guess we'll save.
Get to Sweden if we could, a little bit. We did promise people.
Yeah, let's do it. That's fine.
Okay.
Let's get to that. We've given you guys enough talk about everything else anyway.
Well, I'll save what I was going to talk about tomorrow.
Let's do that.
Save it, Mike.
Okay, so I did the goalies. So
okay.
Let me the top two are no brainers. Markstrom and Robin Lehner. The third one is where I think there's a big question mark. Lundqvist will be 39 in 2022, so I don't think he may be retired by that point. Now, if they bring him along as it's a capper to his career, he's already won a gold medal. But if they think that his experience will be beneficial as a third stringer, I don't think he would play. But if they think that that's beneficial, then okay.
I think they think that would be beneficial.
Yeah, if he's playing in the SHL, Russ, I could see them bringing him along. Yeah. But will that be more beneficial than Linus Ullmark or Jonas Johansson?
Yeah, yes, actually it would, because he is their last guy that won it, and they would look at him and say, "All right, Lundqvist is here. We're watching him practice. He's talking to us in the locker room. If nothing else, he helps the other goalies that are on that team."
Yeah, I agree.
He's friends with Lehner, so that's good.
Show you my forwards here. I'm going to bring them up here. When I was playing around with this, and the forwards are a fun list because
the forwards are terrific.
So so this is what I have so far. They are a really interesting team. Obviously, I think the first line is the top three I have there. Let me see if I can make this bigger for you guys. That helps.
Well, Pettersson, Backstrom, Zibanejad are your top three centers.
Right. So Pettersson, Zibanejad, Backstrom, right. So there, I have. I think. This is my first line, which is Landeskog, Pettersson, and Nylander. I think I would love to see that line play together, just personally.
Mm-hmm.
I know some people want to put Backstrom in there. I want to see Pettersson with Nylander and Landeskog, just because.
I'd probably put Backstrom, but I could, look, if Pettersson wins it, I wouldn't be upset.
Well, I can tell you that at the World Championships a couple years ago, when Sweden won, Nylander played with Backstrom, and it was a vicious
combination. I know, I do agree with that. That's hard to really argue that for sure. I think but 2022, Backstrom's getting up there a little bit. Has he lost anything yet? No, but when we mentioned other players that are his age, we've mentioned that there's some question marks there. So I my second line of four I think is Forsberg, Zibanejad, and Arvidsson, and I like this line. I like this line too. Obviously, you've got two Predators on there.
No,
I'm trying not to do lines, just 12 forwards. I mean, you have to have 4 centers, but I think that Elias Lindholm should probably make it. I definitely think William Karlsson would be in there.
Yeah, no, I think that's my fourth line is Karlsson, Lindholm, and Backlund. Yeah, so
Landeskog, obviously. I mean, Victor Russ. What do you think about Victor Olofsson? I mean, he's on.
I think if nothing else on the power play, Mike, he certainly would be a massive upgrade from some other guy who's a partial NHLer on that. Like, as an example, I don't think Burakovsky even makes this team. I don't.
He's having a big year though.
That's my question mark too, Russ. I agree. I put him on here, but I go with Olofsson over Burakovsky. I could very easily be swayed on that one because I was back and forth.
Well, I mean, Burakovsky and Landeskog are on the same team, so that might be a combo that could fit in.
Didn't play together for that long, though. I mean, to be like that,
Raquel and Silfverberg played together for the last few years with the Anaheim. Now Silfverberg's not having. He's got 21 goals this year. Raquel's got 42 points, so they're both
getting older. Silfverberg too. I mean, it's a tough call. He's a good player, but I didn't put him on my top 12.
But and the question is, do you go down the road of maybe adding some experience, like one or two guys that can, like I always use the example of Chris Drury in 2010 with Team USA.
Yeah,
you always want that sort of grizzled veteran there.
No, you have Backstrom. And
Backstrom's your grizzled Swede. Like I don't think
you have Lundqvist if you bring him.
Even been around long enough to call him.
I would do the opposite. And as an example, if Nils Hoglander plays next year for Vancouver and has a good season, he had 9 goals in the SHL as a young guy this year.
Yeah,
you could make an argument he'd be going.
And if he could play, if he plays with Pettersson in Vancouver, there's a combo that is used to playing.
And it would be the second line for sure.
Right.
But again, if you had some familiarity there, I mean, the positive of this is what makes this team really strong. And I think this team's stronger than what you guys were thinking it is. If Zibanejad is your third string, your third line center, that's an advantage. That's
second or third, even depending on how you play. Yeah, but I totally agree with you. He's like,
I actually think he's their number 2. I think Pettersson is their number 1, and Zibanejad is their number 2 because he's a big center. And then
you're going to put Backstrom as the 3?
Yeah, why not?
That's what I think too. And that's why I put him.
That's an advantage, though. That's a big advantage still.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and he's on the power play. I mean, he's obviously, it depends where Backstrom is, but that's what I did too, Mike. I kind of went that way.
Yeah. Defensively,
that's the way they're incredibly strong. Obviously,
they're set defensively, man.
I mean, Hedman, Karlsson, Ekman, Larson, Klingberg. I think Dahlin for sure.
Right.
The
question is Ekholm or Lindholm. That's my 2. Like I go back and forth between those 2 in my head.
Well, here's what I would say. It's possible that one of the 2, Ekholm and Lindholm, don't make it if, let's say, Adam Boquist hits big in Chicago. If Adam Boquist hits big in Chicago, then you might look at that and say, you know what? That's another cog on the power play that could put them over the top.
Right.
Ekholm is kind of like that middle-of-the-road defenseman. Lindholm, kind of the same thing. He's okay offensively, but he doesn't add a ton. I could see that change happening.
Now, a guy, I'll just go down the Toronto road. I think that Sandin would be too young at 21, but if he has a big year next year, he'd probably be in the mix. And internationally, he blew up last year at the World Juniors. He was the tournament's best defenseman.
At the end of the day, I go with the reason my thinking of Ekholm is more like he is more defensive than Lindholm, I think.
Well, they're both. I mean, they're both
good defensively, but I think that when you look at the defense, like Hedman's obviously great defensively, no question asked. Karlsson is not, right? Erik Karlsson's not.
Yeah.
Ekman Larson is great defensively too. Lindbergh is great defensively. Dahlin, is more offensive, but is still. I mean, the one thing about these defense more than I think all the other teams we've gone through so far is that they are more well-rounded.
It's balanced.
Yeah, they're more well-rounded. They're not just all offensive-minded defense.
And I think people forget, Boquist had 13 points in 41 games for Chicago, so that does give him an edge over Sandin, even though he's younger.
Sure, but I think there are two defensemen that we're sort of overlooking here. One, and both of them I think are two-way defensemen. Actually, one is putting up better offensive numbers than I thought. One is Jonas Brodin, and he's he good skating, but
a little bit older though.
He's only 26.
Okay, I thought he was a little older than that. All right.
And the other one is Marcus Peterson from the Penguins.
Yeah, I don't think Peterson will make it though. I don't think he has the name.
Not yet. Not yet. But if he has another big year, then
and I like Peterson. I think they're going to go for the offensive flash because they already have Hedman, and Hedman can handle anything, and they already have Dahlin, who is solid all around, and Ekman Larson solid all around. So honestly, the more offensive flash they could add, the better their chances are, especially on bigger ice.
Now, I don't think that they'll go the direction of like a Yarmulson who's had injury problems and is 32. They'll move
132 in hockey years.
Yeah.
No, he is. I mean, based on his groin is 132.
I went with Markstrom and Leonard. Like you talked about the goalies, Mike, but I think those two are the two guys.
No, those are the guys.
Okay. Just breaking news here. There was a report regarding the NBA going to Orlando and Disney World as the front runner for their one of their hubs for the NBA.
Yeah.
Pierre LeBrun says in response to that presumably would make Vegas even more attractive to the NHL as one of their hub cities because the NBA is not going to Vegas.
There is a fear about Vegas with the NHL though, and I agree with Pierre that that's true. But the fear, and I think why the NBA stayed away and why the NHL might consider staying away is, you got to think of when this is going to happen. We're talking about July, August, September. Vegas could open up by then. And if Vegas opens up completely, if Vegas is open up completely by then,
well, that's why I would put them in a hotel off the strip.
Yeah, that's a ton of people. That's a ton of people coming from
on the strip. If you put them off the strip, it diminishes it a lot.
Well, there again, nothing is 100% proven right now, but they have been saying that the frequency of infection in warmer weather areas has been significantly less than.
I think it's going to play into it big time.
Right, and that goes hand in hand with Arizona, with Florida, with Texas, and if you're talking Las Vegas in July and August, you're talking 100-degree temperatures. So that might be a factor as well. I don't know whether that's a determining factor or not, but Anaheim
was a thought too, and Anaheim is like
you were in Vegas. I didn't go to Vegas. I only did Washington for the Cup. But how was the ice in Vegas for
Vegas? I didn't go to Vegas either.
Oh, you didn't either. It didn't seem like it was a problem on TV. I don't think it was.
That's a brand new building, so it should.
Well, and they definitely. I mean, that ice making, from what I've been told, is crazy. I mean, they know they're going to a place that's 100 degrees. I mean, the thing all the time. So the thing about that place that Vegas has going for it is zero humidity. So it's like humidity with ice humidity is like one of the big things with ice. So
that's a good point.
That's where Florida is a lot more humid.
Yes,
Vegas is. Dallas.
That's the thing we have to remember. This is going to be a July-August league.
I mean, Arizona and Vegas are two dry places, and they are two places that make a ton of sense. They really do. I mean, just both of them. And then, I mean, one thing that they are taking into major account, I've told, is the amount of locker rooms available in the building, because they're going to have, they're going to have like multiple games in a day. They're going to have two locker rooms are being used by two teams. And then the other two teams might be arriving in another two locker rooms.
Right.
They're gonna have to clean out the first locker room, like just totally wipe it down, disinfect it completely before the third. And if they have 3 games today, the teams are coming back to that room.
So, now, are they going to use those disinfecting drones? Is that what they're going to use?
Oh no,
they can't. They don't have to use those because they're not going to be fans.
No, but in the locker rooms, it might be just easier to.
No, with locker rooms, it's ultraviolet light and it's spraying disinfectant. basically.
But they ideally would love to have like a locker room that is just every team have its own locker room essentially, which is one of the thoughts of originally not having.
Yeah,
12.
that would be fantastic.
If you have 6 teams in some buildings, you could actually probably figure that out, and it would be done by like say like if in Philly for example, we have like the Sixers have a locker room, the Sixers
Right.
the visiting basketball team, the Flyers have a locker room, the visiting hockey team. You have like the media room, which could be transformed into a locker room. So say you have and then like a press conference area, which could be exchanged, which could be turned into a locker room. If you had 6 unique that are just those teams, I think that's really more important than anything else. I mean, I think that's
you make the argument, yeah.
Because if somebody goes, you can sanitize as much as you want, but when you have like multiple teams sharing a locker room, that seems like a problem to me.
Yeah, and one of the factors, like I mean, they were, again, talking about Toronto or Buffalo as potential venues for multiple games for being a hub. They're saying, well, you could use Coca-Cola Coliseum where the Marlies play. Well, I've been in the locker rooms in they're not very big. So
and they're really the ventilation in those rooms is not the greatest either. I mean, it's right.
And even KeyBank Center, if you want to see a disparity between home and visitors locker room, go into the Sabres locker room at KeyBank Center, which is monstrous. It's like the Taj Mahal, and then you go into the visitors locker room and it's like a shoebox.
That could end up being the home ice advantage in these things. Who gets the home team? The top 2 teams get the home team locker rooms, get the basketball and the hockey team locker rooms. Because that's enormous. I mean, and some of these arenas. There are some like arenas around there, and one of the reasons that I've heard brought up for things like say like places like the skate zone, which is ridiculous, but like places where teams practice, is that you have tons of locker areas. Like you have where the Flyers locker areas, but then you also have like locker areas on both sides of the arena for men's leagues and stuff like that. And they're not big. I mean, these aren't like NHL locker rooms, but they're at least safer.
Well, let's be truthful here. What it's probably going to happen with these arenas, because we've been in arenas, we've walked around like the under level where like, that leads to the locker rooms. They could very simply convert like one of the large hallways with screens and stuff like that.
They already do for the
I'm going to give you an easier solution. Honestly, the easier solution, which happens in so many other leagues other than the NHL, because these guys have their own locker rooms. Look, players could get ready at the hotel. They just don't put on their skates and everything, and then you just have this temporary locker room area, whatever, and they do it. I mean, they might have to make that adjustment.
If the less time you can spend in those rooms, the better. Those rooms are going to be the biggest.
Correct. And that's what I'm saying. If you have a single hotel room, you could do everything you need to do there and just bring the couple things with you need.
Yeah, throw your skates on. Just don't put your skates on. It's really all you
right.
Well,
they need to be there.
They've said like in Major League Baseball, they've told their players, you're not going to shower at the arena after games. So like when the Leafs skated, I think in Nathan Phillips Square or wherever it was in Toronto, like there was an outdoor thing. They got dressed at the arena. They hopped the subway, not wearing their skates, I believe. I think they were wearing shoes or whatever, and put their skates on at the rink and skated outdoors. So you could simply do that. Go to get dressed in your hotel room, go down, get in the bus, go to the arena, put your skates on, hop on.
All this is triggering, and we'll get out of here.
Well, the other thing, and then I'll let you talk about the triggering. Yeah. The reason that they're talking about the restrooms being closed isn't so much about the people being around other people. It's the spraying of the toilet that they don't know when that gets into the air when you flush.
Yeah, exactly.
That is a bad proponent to spread the virus. That's the other catch-all with this, and that's why they may tell the players, "Hey, go before you come."
If you can, I mean, and I think, I mean, or they might be peeing into like bottles, like if
we don't know. I mean, but that's
in a situation where in a car they make those urinals for
Well, the Astrodome Act used to have a gigantic urinal, one big urinal.
I've been in arenas like that. Like a lot of college football stadiums still have that,
and it could seat like 30 men at once.
Yeah, it's just a big broth.
Old Yankee Stadium, it was like pissing into a sink.
Yeah. University of Delaware, where I grew up going to football games all the time. That was just a trough along the wall.
Yeah,
really disgusting. I mean, truly awful. And
in front of everybody. Thanks.
The funny thing about my what I'm thinking about when we talk about this getting ready for the games, I have been having this, like, one of my biggest stress dreams that I've been having recurring lately. It's really funny and I have this all the freaking time, is I'm about to play ice hockey and I can't get my goalie equipment on. I can't get it on in time, and people are like, "We're starting the game," and I'm like, as a goalie, it's such an it can't even really tell you, like, that's like
the waking up late for school thing. I had that for 10 years after I was out of school.
Yeah, that's what this still, like, I've had it 3 times this past week where I've been, like, involved in a game, and I'm like trying to get I put my pads on and I forget to put my skates on or whatever. It's just things are, and just like people are like, we're starting the game, we're not gonna have a goalie. Oh my god. It's so many times that I had this dream. It's just like, this is the point where when I do play in hockey, I'm like the first person there by forever. I'm like dressed forever. Yeah. Because this is just like, because there have been times, when I was late or whatever and trying to get your stuff on with teams.
Heck, you late? I can't imagine.
Not in this case. If I had to get dressed in my hockey equipment for this podcast, I'd be ready on time. All right. That's all the time I have for today. Thanks, guys, for listening. Thanks so much for supporting us at patreon.com/hockey, patreon.com/hockey, where you can throw a couple shekels our way. Would be fantastic in these day and age. I know it's tough, so if you can't, you can't. But if you can't do that, at least try to maybe share this with other people and tell other people to come in and retweet the podcast or whatever and get it out there so we get more and more fans. And remember, folks, without the buzz, it is just hockey. We will talk to you tomorrow.